Hey, welcome back, everybody. Happy Wednesday to you. Today we're going to be talking about value-based pricing and how to escape that time for dollars trap. And I really spent a lot of time trying to figure out how best I can articulate what you need to do in order to escape constantly selling your time away for a paycheck. Because unfortunately, that's the mindset that most new entrepreneurs come out of. They're coming out of a world where they have agreed to exchange their time for a specific amount of money. And they move into a world, and that oftentimes is how they begin to sell what it is that they do now. As I said, well, it's going to take me X number of hours, and I want to make X amount of dollars for every hour that I work, and so I'm going to put a price tag on my time. Unfortunately, it's very hard to make that work long term. You can make it work when it's small, but eventually you run out of time. And you either have to buy time from someone else, or you just are going to be stuck at the level that you're at. You can continue to increase your prices. That is something that you can do. But there are easier ways to move out of and to make more money and not have that correlate directly with the amount of time that you have. And unfortunately, a lot of what we're going to talk about today are principles rather than specific tactic. But I want you to stick with me because I don't want that to deter you from listening to today's show. Because I think this is going to get the wheels turning in your mind on how you can maybe repackage or restructure what you do, or how you can look for the real value inside of what you do so that you can charge more and you can justify that valuation. Because you see, human beings, you and I, have a really hard time knowing what things should cost. We use context and we use previous experience, past experiences, to kind of give us an idea of what something ought to cost. But we really don't have any way of telling. And if we change the environment, if we change the brand that is selling the product, we can dramatically increase or decrease the value of that product. And the easiest way I could think about this is with hamburger. See, if you make a quarter-pound cheeseburger at your house, I did the math on it, it's going to cost you somewhere around $2.50. A little bit less, a little bit more, depending on where you are in the country. But it's about $2.50 for a quarter-pound cheeseburger that you can eat at home. Now, if we change it up a little bit and we say, well, how much does a quarter-pound cheeseburger cost at McDonald's? Well, if we go to McDonald's, it's going to cost us about $4.19. Well, where does that extra money come from? Why do we justify the value of the McDonald's burger charging double what we could do if we got it at home, or we made it at home, almost double? Well, sometimes we like the taste of the McDonald's cheeseburger. We like store-bought better than we like homemade. But really, the value that McDonald's provides is you don't have to go buy the ingredients. You don't have to put it together. You don't have to do any of the work. So they're saying that's the value proposition in a McDonald's burger is, hey, I can get it now, and I don't have to go through the effort of actually getting it done. So it's a decrease in the amount of time and the amount of effort required to get the outcome. Okay, that's the real value in that. Now, what if we go to someplace like Houston's? Houston's is a restaurant. Yeah, some of you may know about it, some not. It's not an upscale restaurant, but it is a nice restaurant. It's someplace you would go for a nice business meeting. Or my wife and I love it because they have this cheeseburger there, this cheddar burger that I kill for. I love this thing so much. I used to go there. It's the only thing I eat, which is really funny because they make a lot of nice stuff there. But it's got a nice ambiance in there. You could feel comfortable taking someone there for a nice dinner. Now, the cheeseburger at Houston's costs $13. Now, it's actually going to take me longer to get the cheeseburger if I'm at Houston's than if I'm at McDonald's. So I've actually increased the amount of time that it's going to take me to get the reward, the outcome, which is to eat the cheeseburger. But the quality of the burger goes up. In addition, there are other factors in going to Houston's to get your cheeseburger than going to McDonald's. There is a social benefit to doing so, right? If we take people to that restaurant, there's a completely different feel and expectation when you take someone to Houston's versus McDonald's. If you were to take go have a business dinner and meet at the back of the McDonald's, there's a pretty good chance that the guy you're trying to do business with is going to pass. But if you take them out to a nice restaurant, get a decent bottle of wine, order some food, well, now all of a sudden you can still order the cheeseburger. What I'm getting at is the value increases because of the location and the type of restaurant it is, not necessarily in the burger or the time itself. And then you got Gordon Ramsay's. See, Gordon Ramsay charges in his his new UK restaurant, the burger there, the quarter-pound burger, $106. Now, how is it that Gordon Ramsay can charge $100? I guarantee you there's no way that Gordon Ramsay's $106 burger is better than Houston's $13 burger. I don't care, Wagyu beef, whatever it is. It is not 10 times better than the one that I'm going to get at Houston's. So how does he get away with spending that? How does he get away with charging that much money? And how do people pay for it? Well, it has to do with brand. And brand is... The easiest way to explain brand is a unique promise of value. It is value derived above and beyond any of the other factors that you might choose when selecting where you're going to go to eat, what you're going to put on your body. And the greater and more powerful the brand, the more you can charge. Because a brand is, in addition to being a unique promise of value, is also a guarantee of low variance. Now, what do I mean by that? Follow me on this, because some of you guys are going to get lost in this, but I don't want you to. I want you to really understand why brand is so valuable and why every one of you should be building one right now. Right? What humans want to do when they are humans ask basically 6 questions when they're trying to make a decision as to where to spend money or whether to buy from you or not. And let me tell you what the 6 are. The first question they ask is, how good is this outcome likely to be? Okay, so the burger, how good is it likely to taste? If you're working on social media for someone, like how much could I actually get, how much benefit could I actually get out of hiring someone to do all of my social media content? How much time does it free up in my day to not have to worry about that anymore? See, that's the first question that they ask. How good is this, the dream outcome? Second, what are the odds that I'll get the outcome? See, this is something that we don't consider enough. We just assume that everybody who buys our stuff believes that they're going to get the outcome. Most of the time, they don't. Most of the time, they're trying to figure out, all right, what are the odds how close can I get to whatever the promise is? So if someone says to you, I see this a lot now, hey, hire us to fill your pipeline full of meetings for sales meetings, and if you don't get at least 30 new appointments set and people arriving at them in the next 60 days, then you don't pay. And you kind of go, okay, well, I mean, what are the odds? So this is when I think about that, because I always want you to pay something up front, right? They're like, it's $4,000 a month, but we'll give you the $8,000 back if 60 days later you don't have 30 people in your pipeline. Well, that seems like a pretty good risk reversal, doesn't it? It seems like, oh, well, I feel highly confident now that I'm going to get the outcome. No, you don't. What I think is, well, all right, well, how many do I think I could get? If they get me 10 and I close half of them, is that enough to make it worth it? Because there's all kinds of other downsides to it. Well, if they don't get it to me, now I got to harass them. And what if they set a bunch of appointments, but nobody shows up to the appointment? Or what if they're not qualified? All of these objections come up. So oftentimes the buyer is asking, what are the odds that I'm going to get this outcome? And if I get half of it or a quarter of it, does it still make sense to do the deal? The third question that they ask, or that you need to ask, oftentimes this is the one that we overlook and we don't point to when we're providing context, is what is the risk of them not being successful? So if this fails, what is the risk to me? So we had somebody who was listening in the pre-show on the YouTube channel, and he was asking, he said, I help companies retain talent. And he said, I've used the cost of the company to replace an employee who quits as a value to me and why they should pay for my services. That's great. But think about what it's costing them to have somebody leave. And I used my wife as an example, who works in works with companies to find really unique talent, people who are highly skilled at things like building posters for movies or doing special effects inside of film. And most of these companies are small. They're small visual effects companies that hire and retain talent for specific periods of time. So there's a movie coming up. They need to hire some people to do graphic design and to do VFX for the movie. And they hire these people on for a month, 2 months, 3 months, however long the contract is for. Well, the cost, they already got the contract, so they just need people to do the work. But the problem is, what if that guy comes on and he stays for a week and then he gets a better offer and he jumps ship to the other offer? What's the cost to the company? Not just for that contract, because that contract, well, now they got to find somebody else. There's a mental cost, an emotional cost to, oh man, how are we going to do this now? People are distracted from the work of the business to try and find the talent to do the work. All kinds of other costs associated beyond just, it's going to cost me more money to hire somebody new. Not only that, but if they do a bad job and they can't fulfill on the contract, or they're late because they can't get the talent that they need and the talent keep leaving, well, guess what? There's a pretty good chance they're not going to get another contract. So the cost to the company of getting it wrong, of getting the hire wrong, is exponentially greater than the cost of hiring and retaining the talent. Does that make sense? So what is the risk of getting it wrong? Number 4, how much effort is required to get the outcome? What do I have to do? See, some people, you see this in fitness all the time. I use a fitness example. If you sell fitness, get in shape stuff, right? If you watch them, they're all showing you how simple and easy it is, and they're all got testimonials to show you how easy it is for you to lose a bunch of weight with their gizmo or with their special sauce of a diet and exercise program. Because every single person is asking, all right, what's required? It's if I watch P90X, if you guys remember that old fitness, what's the new one? Is there a new one out, or is P90X still the one? You don't know?
I have no idea.
You haven't worked out in years, have you?
Nope.
All right, so let's go with P90X, because I can look at P90X and I can look at the transformations, and the people are like, man, I did it for 90 days and look at me, I'm shredded. I went from 28% body fat to 12. I believe them. I 100% believe that is the case. I believe that I can get the outcome that they're promoting if I do the work. I believe I can get pretty close to what those other people are getting. Here's the problem. I won't do the work that's required. And I know I won't do the work that's required. And so that will prevent me from making a purchase or seeing the true value of the product. It doesn't really matter. I often said, if someone tried to sell me a sewing machine, it's like, look, I don't sew. I don't know anybody who sews. I don't want to learn to sew. So it doesn't matter how good your sewing machine is. There's no way I get the value out of that sewing machine. You could give it away to me and it still wouldn't be valuable. It'd just sit in the corner. It'd be the most expensive paperweight I owned. That's the kind of thing that you've got to think through. So how much effort is required? If you can reduce the amount of effort, it's kind of like the cheeseburger. Hey, I'll pay a little bit more to not have to do any effort. That's why the ultimate workout pill is you sit down on the couch and you take this pill, and it only works if you drink beer and eat chocolate cake, right? If you can eat beer and drink beer and eat chocolate cake, you can lose weight with this pill. They'd sell $1 gazillion worth. It's why you see Ozempic. There's the guys taking Ozempic now. It's a diabetes medication, but they realize that if they gave it to normal people, they lose like 20 pounds, 25 pounds. Now a bunch of celebrities are on it. I have a friend whose wife is on it. And yeah, just take this thing. There's a little bit of nausea with it, but you take it and literally the weight just falls off. That's a really good drug. That's a really good pitch to somebody. Hey, don't change your lifestyle at all. Just take this pill or take this shot. You'll a little bit of nausea, at first, but you're going to lose 20 pounds in the next 60 days. Like that's a good offer, right? Now, I'm not suggesting that, you do that, but that's why you see all these phony claims about, hey, take this pill, get shredded. It's because nobody wants to put out the effort. So how much effort is required? Number 5, how long will it take to achieve the outcome? Can we reduce the amount of time that it takes? See, when you're in a time for dollars mentality and people start asking you and they start asking questions and they're trying to determine what your value is based on how many hours it takes, this is a really tough place to be in. One of the ways you can overcome that is you ask them, like, if they start asking questions about, well, how long does it take you to put one of these? Let's do video editing, for example, because that's a great nomadic income business that you can start with very little training and experience. Editing video is a really difficult thing to do. It's a very time-consuming thing to do, not very difficult, but very time-consuming. And doing it well, there aren't that many people who can do it. So just having somebody you can pass basic editing off to is a huge value to someone because it saves them a ton of time. Well, a lot of times what they'll ask you is like, well, how long does it take you to make a video? And you can say, well, it depends on the video, but to edit an hour-long video might take me 2 hours. Okay. And then they go, well, but you're charging me $4,000 a month to do 4 videos. That's $1,000. That's $500 an hour. And you're like, well, okay, well, so if it took me longer, it'd be more valuable. So you want to wait longer to get the video. So instead of me turning over the video to you every single week, you want me to take an extra week to do the video and then come back to you. Is that what you're telling me? And it doesn't make any sense, right? Like, we want to reduce the amount of time it takes. And one of the benefits to you and to your company when you hire somebody to do things like video editing is, hey, I have to wait a specific time to get the outcome, but I don't have to do any of the effort. And so if you can reduce the time it takes for them to get the result, you can increase the price. And then number 6, and this is something that a lot of entrepreneurs don't think about, what are the social costs and benefits or benefits of achieving the outcome? So let's stick with our video editing example. Let's say you've been a video editor for years, you're really good at it, and you want to teach somebody else how to edit videos so that they can get into that business. And so you put together this course and you say, this is actually funny because I'm actually putting this course together right now. I've been shooting video all week for our Video Mastery for Entrepreneurs course. That's part of our leverage program. And so one of the things I did in that course was I said, we need to make this short. You don't need 800 videos on video editing and video production in order to create really great videos that convert. As a matter of fact, I'm guessing that nobody who buys that program bought it because they want to spend 800 hours watching videos. No, they bought the course because they wanted the result. They wanted to know what to do so they could get the result. And so you put this course together and you say, I'm going to teach this live, and it's every weekend for the next 6 weeks. You're going to show up and we're going to work on doing video editing together live. And at the end of the 6 weeks, you're going to know everything you need to know to go out and start an editing business for other people. There's just one problem. The classes are on Saturdays and Sundays, and you go to church on Sunday. Now, anybody who is devoutly religious and who goes to church every Sunday now has a social cost that they have to decide whether they want to pay. Is it worth missing church for the next 6 weeks in order to get this result? There's a social cost associated with that. Let's say it's Saturdays and you coach your kid's softball game or you coach your kid's baseball game. All right. There's a cost of you saying, okay, for the next 6 weeks, I'm going to miss the back half of my son's season so that I can go and learn this skill. Is it worth it? There can also be social benefits as well. So we talked about Houston's and taking someone to Houston's for dinner rather than taking them to McDonald's. There's a social benefit of doing that. Status, prestige, those kinds of things. It's a way of signaling, wealth signaling by doing that. So there are all of these 6 things that all of your customers are going to ask. And the trick of getting out of time for dollars is identifying every single one of those questions and then building value inside of every one of those. So how good is the outcome likely to be? What can we do to raise the value? So one way to look at this is to say, what if I tripled what I charge for this product or this service? if I tripled what I charge and I had, instead of, let's say your product is $500 and you charge $1,500 instead, what could you do to that product or that service to make it worth $1,500? That's an easy way to start thinking about how do I increase the value or the outcome for the end user or the buyer. What are the odds they'll get the outcome? See, this is where brand becomes so important. And you're going to notice all the way across these questions, brand becomes really the anchor for all of it. How does somebody decide whether or not they can get the outcome or the likelihood that they'll get the outcome? Well, we got testimonials, case studies, statistics of other people who have gone through the program or have used your services. You see this in the education business. Legitimate education businesses don't usually use hypey sort of promises. For example, you'll see a lot of these internet marketers and coaches, consultants online saying, I'll show you how to get 10,000 followers in 30 days or go from zero to get $10,000 a month in 1 month. He started his company 2 weeks ago, and his first launch, he did $10,000, right? Stupid stuff like that. Stuff that there's no way that that's happening repeatedly. That is an outlier if it's even true. You don't see legitimate companies do that. What you see legitimate education companies do is they'll say things like, take Harvard, for example. Harvard will not tell you what the average pay is of somebody who graduates from their institution. What they'll do is they'll use testimonials that talk about what it's like to be on campus and the connections they've made and how great it was to have access to the level of talent. They'll talk about, here are the industries, the top 10 industries that get placements. Here are the number of people who find work in those industries within 6 months of graduating, what percentage, right? They talk in those statistics rather than in specifics, what you can expect. They don't make any claims about, oh, you personally are going to get X, Y, and Z when you get done with this. But because of the brand that they built, the institution, they don't have to do a lot of selling. What's the risk if you're not successful? That's on you to make sure that your prospect knows what the costs are if they get it wrong. And again, remember, we have trouble with this. We need the context. We need to be reminded. We need to remind our prospects of all of the ways that not using your service or getting it wrong can be damaging. Right? How much effort is required to get the outcome? Can we reduce that? Can we take the burden away? Again, if we charge more, can we reduce the burden on them? It's amazing what you can do if you just triple your prices. You're like, oh yeah, I can hire somebody to do this for you, and then you don't have to do it at all. It's really tough to do that if you're trying to win the price game. In a race to the bottom, it's really hard for you to add the kind of value that you need to be able to create the ultimate value-based offer. Oftentimes, what a lot of you need to do is you need to increase your prices. Because if you increase the price, now you can create a more compelling offer that really is of massive value to the people that you're doing business with, right? So how do you reduce the effort, and how do you reduce the time it takes for them to get the result? And then how do we create some social benefit? How do we, and again, brand is a great way to do this. There's a reason Fendi sneakers are like $1,200. They're not better than Nike. In many cases, the luxury brands, as we talked about in the pre-show, are worse than the discount brands in terms of quality. Why does Fendi get to sell a $1,200 sneaker? I'll tell you why. Because there is a social benefit to wearing Fendi. You're signaling to everyone that you can afford $1,200 sneakers. Right? Whether you think that's good or not, there are people out there who believe it is. I don't wear anything but Gucci. I don't drive anything but Mercedes. It's because there's a social benefit to them to doing that. So how do we reduce the social costs and increase the social benefits for the products that we've got? And as I said before, the easiest way to do this is through brand and through building solid brands and a personal brand is nothing more than reputation, right? And a brand in general is a unique promise of value. It's value above and beyond the whatever the material value is of it. So in terms of hamburgers, the value is that you get sustenance, that your hunger is satiated, right? But the value that you put on the burger can differ significantly based on the other things, the other unique promises of value that exist in your company and your brand. We got questions, anything like that? You guys got questions, let me know. Guys, we had some great ones earlier, but Dan, I'll turn it over to you. Your thoughts?
I think so much of just, as I listen to you talk about this, so much of it is, I think about just differentiation and thinking through all those different components. I think back to, my old life in my grad school days about something called the Bertrand paradox, which is where you just have two firms, identical products, they're competing. One firm gets a little greedy, decides that they want to cut prices a little bit, capture all the profit in that one period, and then they just slowly compete down until they don't have any more profit. Then they just start charging at marginal cost, right? So you only have two firms. It should be an oligopolistic environment, but it's not, because the two firms now switch to competing on price. And if you think about that kind of in your service, if you've done a lot to differentiate yourself and then the market maybe gets a little bit more crowded, still don't revert back to that competing on price. That's one of those things that teaches me. The other thing that teaches me is that thinking about this from a pricing angle, I think is always just, a losing game. If you're always trying to differentiate yourself by being the cheaper option, we'll give you more for less, you're going to get yourself into a really stressful environment if you try to run with that. Does that Bertrand paradox example make any sense?
No, it does, and I think you make a valuable point that we should never be competing on price. But there's a problem in a lot of industries. I've spoken about this before, but if you're in an industry where what you sell is very complicated and people have a very difficult time judging who's good and who isn't. So a great one is in the financial industry. If you sell any financial product at all, wealth management, broker dealers, that kind of stuff, there is the person walking into your office has either they don't really understand what you do, or in other ways, like in finance, there's a lot of regulation. So it's almost impossible. You can't have a product that the guy down the street doesn't have that's markedly better than the one you offer, because regulation prevents you from doing anything outside of some very narrow sort of requirements, right? And so if you have some special financial product, somebody down the street, if it's really good, they'll create their own version of that. So now, how do you differentiate? Nobody really understands how to invest the money or what you're doing with it when you're buying and selling stuff. And you can't really differentiate on the product because everybody's got the same thing. So what are you left with? All you're left with is brand. All you're left with is reputation of the company. And as I said before, human beings are really concerned with catastrophic outcome. When I said a brand is a promise of low variance, what I mean by that is when we see certain brands, we take comfort. When I see Apple, I know that product is going to be good. I know I'm not going to get a lemon when I buy that thing. But some generic PC that's being sold online for, that's non-name brand and that I don't recognize, what is the risk to me that I might spend $1,000 and buy a piece of junk, right? So when we see brand, we know what Cheerios is going to taste like. And we know that if we buy the box of Cheerios, it's going to taste the same way every time. If we buy the Tastios, there's some risk that we may get inconsistency in the quality. And so if we're concerned about a catastrophic outcome, maybe going to the grocery store, getting a box of Tastios and getting food poisoning, we can buy the Cheerios because we believe that there's less risk of a catastrophic outcome. That's one of the main benefits of your brand. So if I'm going into and trying to decide who I'm going to invest my money with, and they're all smooth talkers, and they all promise me that they can make me money, but hey, it's my life savings. If I get that wrong, I'm destitute. And now I'm going to be relying on others to provide for me in my old age. It's pretty important that you get that right. You know how most people make that decision? Brand and referral. which is another form of brand, right? Somebody else says, they're good, they're my guy. How do you think everybody lost their money with Bernie Madoff? Bernie Madoff had an amazing brand and reputation on Wall Street. He'd been doing it for years. Constant, steady returns. People just begging him to put money in. Nobody could tell what he was doing. Nobody understood it. Didn't stop people from giving them their life savings. That's the power of brand. That's the power of a solid reputation. And if you are competing on price, it makes it really hard for you to create an amazing outcome for somebody. I would say it's impossible. And if you don't focus on building brand and establishing your trust and authority with the people that you're doing business with and potential prospects, it's going to be nearly impossible for you to do anything but compete on price. Because in most industries, it's very, very hard to differentiate.
Yeah, I really love the example that you use there with the financial product, right? Because you said what's left. Hey, they copied the product's the same, you can't differentiate on the product, all this regulation. And then you said what's left. And I think one thing that is easy to think about is price. The price is the thing that's left, but you can't differentiate on the price. It all goes back to the brand. So this conversation about value-based pricing is so wrapped around this idea of brand because they're intertwined. They are effectively the same thing. Without a brand, you can't have justifiable value-based pricing to move yourself forward.
Yeah, because the risk's too high, right? Again,
Yep.
you go back to who do you give your money to? It's like we coach businesses and business owners around here. That's what we do. That's how I make my money. Is we do this show and I work with companies at varying levels of business in order to help them grow and help them achieve the goals that they've got for the company, right? Well, how do they decide to go with me instead of somebody else? It's because we establish trust and brand reputation where people know, hey, I know if I go to Jason that he's going to do right by me, right? And a lot of times that's a long process of them dipping their toe in. So you might have found me by just listening to this podcast and you liked what you heard. And so you signed up for the email list and the daily alchemy newsletter, and then, the weekly alchemy. And then Mondays you read that and you're always inspired and you like what it is. And then all of a sudden I offer this free training, this free workshop. We've got one coming up here soon. This free workshop on how to build your brand using story. And you say, oh, that sounds pretty good. I think I'll sign up for that. And you show up and you attend, you spend 2 hours with me. We learn how to tell stories that build our brands up. And you walk away from that going, man, that was amazing. I can't believe he didn't charge me money for that. That's one of the best 2 hours that I've ever spent working on my brand. That's the expectation, right? And so then you say, well, he's got this leverage program over here that's supposed to help businesses, owners like me, entrepreneurs who want to break that 6-figure barrier in their business. And it's $49 a month. Well, man, if it's anywhere close to what I got out of that 2-hour session, it's going to be worth every penny. So then they go and sign up, and now they've spent a little bit of money. And then as the business grows, maybe we got our copywriting clinic that comes up at the end of this year. It's $2,000. And they're thinking to themselves, man, I've gotten so much value. Everything I've ever done with this guy has been amazing. And I want to learn how to write incredible sales copy. So I'm going to sign up for that course. And I'm going to do that 2-day workshop with him. See, that's the progression of things. That's how we build that reputation. Oftentimes before they even get to the podcast, they've probably been following me on Instagram or on YouTube, and they've been checking out all the other stuff that I'm doing. Every time I make a promise and I deliver on the promise, I strengthen the brand. And I reduce the risk in the minds of the buyer that they will not get the outcome that's promised. See how that works? And it doesn't matter what business you're in. It all works the same way. The most valuable skill you can have is the ability to effectively communicate your value to somebody else. That's the most important skill. Second most important is being able to build a brand around that. So having the ability to communicate your value and establishing a strong brand, that gives people the trust and the confidence that if they do business with you, that they'll get the outcome promised. If you'll do those things and you'll answer those 6 questions, take your product right now and go through those 6 questions I listed. I'll read them again for you in case you didn't write them down. Okay. How good is the outcome likely to be? What are the odds that I'll actually get the outcome? What is the risk if I'm not successful? If I fail, what are the risks? How much effort is required for me to get the outcome? How long will it take to achieve the outcome? And then last, number 6, what is the social cost or benefit to me achieving the outcome? Go into those 6 questions, spend some time on it this week, figuring out, okay, how can I make the outcome bigger? How can I reduce someone's concern that they're not going to get the outcome? How can I reduce the amount of time and the amount of effort required for them to get the outcome? And what you're going to find is that the answer to those questions is not charge less. It's not show them how much time it takes me to do this and then do a time for dollars calculation. Most of the time it's going to be like, well, dude, in order to make all this work, I got to double my prices. Double my prices, then I can really make a compelling offer. That's value-based pricing. That's where every one of you needs to be. Again, Dan, anything else?
No, I don't think there's anything else that covers it.
Okay, cool. All right, guys, that's it. That's those 6 questions. Hopefully you got a lot out of this. If you did, please share the show. Tell somebody else what we're doing around here. We love it when you share the show. We don't do any advertising. We don't advertise this program anywhere other than just on this YouTube channel and through you guys. So you guys are the reason that we keep coming back, and I want more. I want more of you. So post this where other entrepreneurs hang out and let them get the value that you're getting as well. Be a sharer, right? Too much time we spend in competition with one another when we could be cooperating and collaborating. And oh, what a world that is when great minds and great businesses come together and collaborate instead of competing. It's a different way of thinking about business. One of the ways you can help somebody else out is by sharing the show. So go and do that. We'll be back on Monday to do it all over again. Until then, be safe, be good. I'll talk to you then. Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you liked the show today, I'm going to ask you to do 2 things for me. First, subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. We release new shows twice a week, along with special bonus episodes and interviews that you are not going to want to miss. And second, share the show with somebody. Do it right now. Post it out on your social media. Email or text a friend that you think would get value out of it. The number one way this show grows is through listeners like you who take the time to tell others about what they're listening to. So please take a moment and share the show.